So we finally know what the brand new TCG exclusive archetype does. The archetype is called Beetroopers. Now we knew that it was going to be insect support, but we didn't know exactly what it was going to do, and luckily it is generic insect support. Now after quite a bit of testing, this is the build that I ultimately came up with. It is Kaiju, Giant Ballpark, Battle Wasp, Beetroopers. Basically it's just going second insect good stuff. Now the Beetroopers are really fantastic support for insects. The biggest problem with them though is that the extra deck monsters lock you into insects, and there aren't a whole lot of other extra deck monsters that you can go into that are really good that happen to be insect. That is the biggest reason why we choose to go second in this build. It also helps out that we have Kaijus and Giant Ballpark to help support going second as a whole. As I previously mentioned, your strategy is to go second, but sometimes you are going to be forced to go first. So I wanted to give some quick combos just to fall back on so you know what to do in those situations. Luckily, this deck does have a searchable counter trap that you can get to by getting to your Link 4, which happens to be untargetable and cannot be destroyed by card effects. Now there's lots of different ways to do this. Really all you need is a searcher alongside an extender, because the Link 2 for Beetroopers gives you an additional normal summon. Additionally, the Link 2 has an effect that allows it to revive itself from the graveyard by banishing 3 insect monsters. Your Link 4 requires you to tribute an insect monster in order to special summon a Beetrooper monster from your deck. If you special summon Sting Lancer, this allows you to search your counter trap. Now your counter trap is pretty good. It negates monster effects and destroys the monster that activates it, and it can reset itself from the graveyard if you control your Link 4 by banishing an insect monster during your end phase. Now our optimal 2-card combo is Retaliating Sea plus an Insect Extender, and what's really cool is Retaliating Sea also happens to be a hand trap, so it has a lot of dual utility in this deck. Now the reason that Retaliating Sea is your optimal card here for this 2-card combo is because it gives you immediate access to Resonance Insect. Resonance Insect allows you to add a level 5 or higher insect monster from your deck to your hand if it's sent to grave. Additionally, if it's banished, it allows you to Foolish Burial an insect. This lets you dig through your deck, but most importantly, it lets you end with Sting Lancer both on field and in hand. This gives you access to your counter trap, and it also gives you access to Sting Lancer's in-hand DD Crow-like effect. Now there is a slightly better way to do these combos going first. That said, it is a 2.5 card combo as opposed to the previous 2, which were just 2-card combos. This is simply just because you need a discard. You see, the Inzektor Link monster just happens to be a Union Carrier for insects. What's particularly nice about it is there aren't really any limitations on the monster that's equipped other than it needing to be an insect monster. So if you equip Resonance Insect, you always kind of have access to it, and when it's sent to grave, even as an equipped spell through the effect of the Inzektor Link monster, it will still get its effect. All of this allows you to end on your Link 4, which is pretty hard to get rid of on its own. It also lets you end on your counter trap, Sting Lancer in hand, so you have a DD Crow-like effect going on, and it lets you end on Retaliating Sea, which is a pseudo Macrocosmos if your opponent activates a spell card that would special summon a monster. So all of those combos were examples of what you can do with this deck going first. But where this deck really shines is going second. That's because there are a lot of really good, somewhat generic insect cards that just happen to be built specifically for going second. The most immediate example of insect cards that are just built for going second is the Kaijus. Now, Kaijus are, of course, a multitude of different typings, but insect is the only typing where there are multiple Kaijus of that specific typing that can be used as actual Kaijus. I say that because machines actually have 3 Kaijus, but only one of them has the Kaiju effect of tributing an opponent's monster. The other 2 don't do that. And as you saw in the combo portion of this video, all you really need in order to go off in this deck is one Searcher or Floater, plus an Insect Extender. So what you can do is you can use Interrupted Kaiju Slumber in order to blow up the entire board, give your opponent a Kaiju, give you a Kaiju. normal summon, and just go off. It makes things a lot simpler to just go ahead and break the opponent's board and just kill them on the same turn. Additionally, Goki Pull functions as a floater that lets you special summon a vanilla from deck, and when doing so, it lets you pop an opponent's monster that has higher attack. So it's a very easy way to just go ahead and get over any kaiju that you happen to give to your opponent, and add an additional 2,000 damage to the board in order to OTK them. Now the other card that really made me sit and think this had to be a going second build was Giant Ballpark. If you've never read Giant Ballpark, I don't blame you. I'd never really read it in depth myself. I only sort of knew what it did because a friend of mine had played a deck around it at locals at one point. But I never really fully read it myself until I started looking at cards for this video. Now, Giant Ballpark is a field spell, and what it does is when either player would take damage, you can reduce the damage to 0 and then send a level 4 or lower insect monster from your deck to the grave. If you happened to send a vanilla, you can special summon as many copies of that vanilla from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So because we're playing a 2000 beater, we can reduce damage to 0 from just a small little hit and then instantly put 6,000 damage on board just by summoning our vanillas. And if we don't OTK our opponent, we can still use those as materials in main phase 2. Additionally, Sting Lancer allows us to put back one of those vanillas through its effect when we're putting back an opponent's card. So you have the ability to use Giant Ballpark as many times as you can recycle or use your Sting Lancers. Giant Ballpark also has some additional utility with Goki Pull. Normally we have access to Goki Pull anyway, but if we can't get access to it, Giant Ballpark gives us the ability to send it from deck to grave. When it's sent to graveyard, it lets us search for a level 4 insect monster. If we happen to search a vanilla, we can special summon it, and then we can destroy one monster our opponent controls with more attack than that vanilla. So it makes it to where Giant Ballpark also can function as a removal spell. The other noteworthy thing that I wanted to mention is that we can't always OTK our opponent. You're never really going to be able to guarantee that you can in any deck, but the ability to swarm while going second in this deck is significantly higher than going first. So you can end on a little bit of a better board, and your turn 1 boards, for example, are harder to get over if your opponent is already down on resources, and it's easy enough to break an opponent's board in this deck to where it seems optimal to do so. So let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Why am I not trying to mix this with Insectors? For those of you who don't know, Insectors are, or at least I think they are, please correct me if I'm wrong here, the only insect deck in Yu-Gi-Oh history to ever be tier 1. Now if you notice, there aren't any Insector cards on the ban list currently, which means they are at full power. In theory, they should be a pretty strong deck right now, but they aren't really doing anything. Which made me kind of question why. And the answer, as far as I can tell, is they lose really hard to hand traps. And this deck doesn't really do a whole lot to help fix the problem that Insectors have with hand traps. Really the best thing that it can do to help that is if you give an additional extender onto a board, you can give them an additional normal summon. Now that might make their end boards a little bit stronger. But really, it doesn't let them play through hand traps unless they already have a additional starter in hand in order to try and combo again if they get stopped. The other reason I'm not trying to mix this deck with Insectors at the moment is kind of out of respect. If you don't know, Konami did an online poll recently. They had 16 different themes, and the winner would get a new support card. Insectors ended up winning the whole thing, and it was announced that Insectors are going to be getting a brand new spell card here at the end of the year. I believe they're getting it in December. And it seems a bit too coincidental to me that we would get an insect TCG exclusive archetype that happens to work with pretty much any insect themed deck. I'm sure Konami realizes that Insectors need more than one card of support in order to fix the archetype. By the time that December rolls around, we'll have already gotten a second wave of Beetrooper support in the TCG. And then we'll be getting a brand new spell card specifically for Insectors at that time. Now, having an additional normal summon through the Link 2 is a huge help for Insectors. I'm sure of it. but I'm really wanting to look to see what Konami is trying to do here, because I think this is ultimately meant to boost Insectors, and I want to see what individual pieces they throw out through the Beetroopers in order to help the archetype, because I am kind of convinced that that's what they're trying to do here. And if this happens to fall short, if this isn't actually what Insectors need in order to be a good deck again, then oh well. This is still really good support for insects, and I'm really happy to see insects as a typing getting really good generic support, because insects have kind of been shafted. They're one of those typings that has just kind of gotten gimmicky cards, and that's about it. And as a TCG exclusive archetype, this is pretty good. We've had everything in TCG exclusive archetypes from Burning Abyss to War Rocks, and this does seem like it's a little bit on the stronger end. You can tell they're trying here. They're making non-targeting, non-destruction boss monsters and searchable counter traps. So I would recommend picking this up if you do get the chance. It seems like something that Konami's trying to make good. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know what you'd like to see next in the comment section down below. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to contact me directly, you can do so over Discord, link in the description.